Hi everyone, welcome to Noxanimous Designs. I'm Christina. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. If you happen to like this video, please subscribe. I've made 5 more granny square stitches, which brings us to 10. The first one I did is the wiggle. I'll show these a little closer up on a black background for you so you can see them better. Next is the granny spike. The waffle. The granny diamond. And puffs. Oops, upside down. And now for the next 5 stitches that we're going to be working on. Number 38, overlay steps. Number 23, corner to corner. Number 39, long wave. Number 21, cluster V-stitch. And number 25, lark's foot. Okay guys, that's going to be our next set of 5 that we're going to be working on. So far we've already completed 10. And now that you've got 10 granny squares, what can you even do with them? I mean, not everybody wants to do a blanket and save up 400 squares. So let's talk about that. If you're talking just one square, we can do something like the gift pouch. When I did that corner to corner and folded all 4 sides together, just made that little flip, perfect. Easy to make coasters with these. A 4x4 granny square works for about what a glass size should be. Pot holders and hot pads. While a 4x4 is going to be small, you can keep going. You can make these longer, taller, and just overall bigger. There's nothing that stops you from increasing the size of a granny square. And if you want to keep increasing the size, you can even go so far as to make it big enough to cover the seat of a chair. Another thing that's easy to do, dishcloths. That's just with 1. Now let's go into 2. 2 is when you're going to hit things like your makeup bags. 2 is when you're going to hit things like a drawstring bag. You just need one granny square on each side, a drawstring to go through the holes that are naturally formed in most granny squares. You've got the perfect little bag. My advice, don't choose a stitch that's very wide open. Choose some of the closer stitches so that things aren't going to fall out. 2 together with a little stuffing, again, making sure it's a closed stitch, you've got a pin cushion. And well, if you're working on amigurumi, a lot of times you're going to need pins to hold things in place. For larger pieces like the heads, you're going to use amigurumi sticks, but for small things like arms or legs or even a little tail, typically I just use long pins. 2 together also works perfect for a cup sleeve. Can't tell you how many times I've been to Starbucks and they don't have the sleeves for my hot coffee, and really wish I had some of those in the car. Like I said, you can always increase the size of the granny squares. The opposite is you can make them smaller. You can make them small enough to where you can put 3 together and get a nice little bookmark. Another way to do this is to use smaller thread. Instead of using a 4 or a 3 weight, go down to a 2 or a 1. You're going to have a nice small granny square that's going to be beautiful, delicate, and thin, so it's going to work great as a bookmark. Now let's hit the 4 squares. The 4 squares is where we really start to shine. 4 squares, you're going to be able to do something like a crossbody bag. You're going to be able to do a makeup bag. You can even add a little zipper in there. Of course, it's going to involve hand sewing, but don't be afraid of hand sewing. You can cover up a plant pot with that, 4 going all the way around. And don't stop at plants that are on the ground. You can even make a plant hanger out of granny squares. And in this case, because it's a stitch, there's nothing that says you can't make this longer. You could actually just make one very long rectangular granny square rectangular. Okay, that doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean. You can make one long strip to go around and keep that design and then just seam it together. So if your plant is 8 inches around, you can make a granny stitch that is literally 8 inches long and 4 inches high or 5 inches high, however you want. That's one of the great things about doing the stitches versus the traditional granny squares. You can make a sunglass holder, a tissue box cover. Fingerless gloves work very well. You just need one on the front, one on the back, and then do a little ribbing for the cuff, and you've got fingerless gloves. Dishcloths are great. 4 together makes the beautiful square, or you can just make one really big one. Once we get into 5, we can start making things like bucket hats. The top, you can make a circle, attach 5 granny squares around, and then make a brim around that. And there you've got bucket hat. Once we hit 6 squares, we're into things like book sleeves. You can add a flap onto that and go ahead and close that over the book and make a little tie. That way it just doesn't pop open on you. You can also start doing things like headbands. And there is a pattern for slippers. 8 squares, we're going to start getting into things like scarves. Now, the entire scarf will not be made of 8 squares unless they happen to be extremely large. But you can make a regular scarf and then add 4 squares at each end and add a pocket if you'd like. You can make 6 squares around where the neck is, make a regular scarf going down, then add some more decorative at the very end. Hats, slouchy beanies, this is all when you start to hit around 8 squares. Table runners are great. Now you can start at 8, but sometimes depending on the size of your table, you might even be up to 20. Pillows, 4 on the front, 4 on the back. You can go up to 10, do 9 on the front and 1 giant one on the back. At 9 is when you can start adding things to clothing. Take a plain jean jacket, add 9 squares to the back, and now you've got a beautiful pop of color. At 10 squares, we're talking things like slipper boots. You can take a granny square and put one on each pocket of your jeans. Take a couple of granny squares, add an extra cuff to a jacket. You can take a jacket, remove the arms, and then add granny squares on top of that. Now each sleeve is probably going to be anywhere from 8 to 10 depending upon the size of your granny squares. Overall, we've listed about 34 different ways you can use 1 to 10 granny squares. I'd like to introduce another kind of granny square project that I want to add into this series. About a year and a half ago, I think it was my aunt, could have been my mother, they were cleaning out the attic and they found a bag filled with granny squares that my grandmother had made. Now, neither of them are the crocheting type, so they handed those to me to be able to put together. They didn't really say how to put them together. So I decided, what the heck, it's a lot of squares, let's do a blanket. So the first thing I did was I started to go through and sort all of the squares. And that's when it happened. I found the cocoons. This was wool, vintage wool, and I found 2 cocoons empty. Now, I didn't see any damage done to the wool itself at first glance. So I took everything out, divided it into 2-gallon Ziploc bags, and put those Ziploc bags in the freezer for about a week each. Then off to getting them washed. Went ahead, it took 2 full tub loads of getting them into the water, getting them washed. The problem was the first tub load that I put in, the smell. Apparently they were kept with mothballs, and it wasn't that obvious until you got them wet. Then it released the mothball smell. It was horrible. So I tried a couple of tricks to get rid of the odor. 1, just good old wool wash. That was a fail. 2, tried baking soda, vinegar. Both fails. Tried vodka. Vodka actually does get out smells. It's a great way to get smells out of clothing. It's kind of like the OG Febreze. Put it in a bottle, spritz down your clothing. Once the alcohol dries, takes away the smell. Didn't work. You can also wash it in vodka if you want, but either way, it didn't work. Then somebody on Facebook said, try Odoban. It's pretty much an industrial strength Febreze. This woman said she used it on her son's gym clothes and it worked. So checked it. It seemed it was going to work on wool. And I went ahead, laid out all the granny squares and sprayed them down. It works miracles. The mothball smell is gone. It left a bit of a nice fragrance behind, and I'm ready to put everything together. Now overall, I haven't counted them, but I think I have around 400. Each load that I did in the tub was around 175 to 200. I can't remember the exact. So I'm going to have a pretty big blanket. And these are all the granny squares. This is not a small box. It is packed full. So what I did is I started out with a strip of 21 by 4 inches, 21. It should cover a king size length. I put it on my bed and it seems a bit too long, and I have a king. So I'm going to take 2 of those off and I'm going to do strips of 20 instead. Once I get the strips done, put those together. So every week you're going to see this grow with me, because right now it has been sitting in a box for the past 6 months because I just didn't want to deal with it. And it's just not going to get done unless I push myself. And what better way than to have you guys hold me accountable for this. So along with doing the 5 stitches every week, I'm going to also make sure that I put together at least 1 full strip of 20. But overall, these are all in the same stitch pattern, but she just changed up the colors of the yarns. Some of them had a little bit of variegation in them, but most of these were plain. And all of them are surrounded in black, so that's going to make a nice base for the pop of color. Okay everyone, that's it for the Granny Square stitch deck, and I guess grandmother's granny squares if you want to add that in. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's been great to have you. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. It really does help the channel get out there to other people who are going to enjoy this video. Great seeing y'all. Stop by again. Bye.